hell was that? Oh gosh, it's so bad. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessinho. So yeah, here we are. This is the exact reason why I enjoyed the North London derbies, because I knew that this was probably around the corner. There was a bad result just kind of chilling there, just waiting to like boom, jump out. And it's here, and it could have been worse. Let's be honest. I mean, if we're really, really real with ourselves, we should have lost that game. And to come out with a 0-0 draw is kind of like, but there's some clear issues there. And they started from minute one for me. I couldn't believe the passiveness in which we were playing. And we do this from time to time with Mikel Arteta. And I feel like I've kind of hit the nail on the head just a little bit in terms of where this comes from, why some days we press people off the pitch and we look really good and aggressive, and then other games we just completely sit off of the opposition and look like shit, and I just think when he gets into a situation where he's playing against a manager who he deems is very smart and he thinks is tactically astute and he really rates them, he's very risk adverse and he doesn't want us to press, because if we get beat, he's afraid we'll get punished for it. But at the same time, when you play that way, then you limit your ability to hurt the opposition. And so I saw clear issues in midfield where I felt as though we vacated it completely, with Thomas Partey dropping into the back line and Lokonga going into left back. And we just gave them the run of the game. We never really got into it. And at first I thought it was the conditions. It was the rain, but it never really came together, did it? I mean, I think if we're really, really honest, there was never a point in time where I felt like we dominated any period of that match. I think we were comprehensively outplayed, and Arteta was outclassed tactically by Graham Potter, which I kind of expect. I think Potter is a superior manager, and so he knew exactly what to do. He's not like Nuno and Spurs and was just going to leave himself exposed. He was going to make sure that he limited our access to Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka. And I think we played into their hands, because ultimately I feel in the minimal amount of times where we actually pressured one of the Brighton players, we were able to nick the ball off of them. Surprise, surprise. They're not Man City. They're Brighton. Although they're well coached, I don't deem them as technically better than our players. I don't think that those players are technically better than ours, but they're better coached, and that is a worry, So there's about 33 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's just going to be me today, and we're just kind of going to go through the game. I'll talk to you guys about my winners, my losers, and all that kind of stuff. But first, before we get like really into the nitty-gritty, I do want to and I knew I would get shit for it, but I do feel like I jumped the gun with Arteta out. And the reason why is not because I don't think that there's still issues. I still think there's issues with Arteta. And here's the thing about Twitter and Arsenal, football Twitter, being a content creator and stuff, is that people try to force you into a box and make you be binary, meaning that you have to either be Arteta in or Arteta out. And if you don't want to play that game, people call you a flip-flop. They get really upset with you. And quite frankly, I'm a 32-year-old. I actually don't care, like, if people think I'm flip-flopping or whatever, because it's kind of just like, I don't care. In the end of the day, I will change my opinion based on what I'm seeing. And in those first 3 games, I did feel like what I was seeing was a loss of the dressing room. And I was very much so Arteta out last season between November and December, because I felt like he had lost the dressing room. And any manager for me that loses the dressing room has to go. And I thought the performances against Man City, Chelsea, and Brentford were unacceptable for me. I didn't see players running. I didn't see them playing hard. I just saw them kind of giving it up. And I just didn't feel good about that. We played against Norwich, Burnley, and Spurs, albeit not the best competition. But what I did see was at least a team that I could get behind and see something from, some sort of, oh, okay, like a light bulb went off and like, this is what they're trying to do. We definitely have a style of play. We definitely had some sort of tactical plan going throughout our games. And although we still are lacking goals and we're still struggling in certain periods of the game, I did think that's something that I could at least get behind. The reality, you guys, is Arteta is not going anywhere. And so being hyper Arteta out, unless we're going to stop buying jerseys and stop going to games, really doesn't make a lot of sense, because just bitching about it online is not really going to do anything. We know the greater issue is the Cronkies. So if I can see something, I will back it and at least look at it and give it a chance to come to fruition before I make a clear decision on how I feel about it. And right now, even after the draw, I feel like it's inconclusive. In the next 4 to 5 games, we could look back on this draw and say it was just a draw where we played really bad, or we could look back on it and say it was just a blip during a good run. So I think jumping the gun either way still at this point is a little bit premature. But this is one of the issues with Mikel Arteta, is that I feel when he plays against Klopp, when he plays against Pep, when he plays against managers that he really rates and thinks maybe have a tactical edge on him or something like that, or a team that's playing well or in form, he cowers and he's really risk adverse. And I don't really get that. I don't think he got the starting lineup wrong, because that's the lineup that we expected. I think anybody who's now going back in time and saying the lineup was bad needs to really check themselves, because we all were kind of begging for this lineup. Just replace Xhaka with Sambi. It wasn't the lineup. It was the tactics and what they were told to do on and off the ball that confused them. If you give Brighton space and you allow them run of the midfield, because you're telling Thomas to back up into the center backs and telling Sambi to be basically a left back, what you're basically doing is just inviting pressure. And Odegaard, Saka, and ESR and Aubameyang were not getting close enough to those players to keep them honest. And so they were just making runs into the box, ghosting into positions that they shouldn't have been in. And had we have been more aggressive and pressed them a little bit more, they would have had to make a hard decision on whether or not it was worth it to jump into those positions. And I don't think we made them make those decisions enough. We tried a little bit at the back end of the game with Lacazette and Pepe and Saka up top, but it just wasn't enough. It just really, really wasn't enough. And I do question the performances, individual performances of particular players. Thomas Partey, Odegaard, and Aubameyang, I think they sucked. I really do. And I know that's going to sound harsh, but I don't think their issues were so much tactical. I think they just dropped the ball in terms of their intensity wasn't there. They weren't clicked on. I was very disappointed in those three, because they're supposed to be our leaders out there on the pitch, and they didn't do it. You know, you can forgive a Sambi, you can forgive Emil, you can forgive these guys, but Odegaard, Aubameyang, and Thomas Partey, the body language is off for me. There wasn't enough pressing. There wasn't enough like get up and go. Very disappointed in them. But yeah, let's see what you guys are saying really quick before we kind of get into it. Chad says a few players didn't turn up today. Aubameyang, Sambi, Tommy, Odegaard. It's just not the manager to blame. Miss Xhaka on many levels. And I'm not saying it's all Arteta's fault, but what I am saying is that Arteta made mistakes, you know, and for me, I can forgive the players a little bit more than I can the manager when I feel like that was the bigger issue. I think if you press the opposition and you put them under pressure and you keep them honest, even though you may open yourself, because the fact of the matter is not doing any of that, you are open anyway. So at least if you make them make a decision and they make a mistake, you have enough players up the pitch and you have enough pressure on their back line to make them make mistakes, you know? So ultimately, I think some of the players didn't show up, but I think some of the performances are indicative and are correlated to the tactics that were employed by the manager. Matt G says, as a fan base, we can't freak out like rival fans or expect us to do. It's an away point. We move on. And I do holistically believe in that, Matt. I think it's a point away from home against a team that's in really good form, you know, but I don't really care what rivals are saying right now. A lot of people care so much about what rivals are saying, and I just am kind of like, it's their job to banter us. I mean, even Spurs have the audacity to try to banter us when their club is a dumpster fire, so I don't know why we're so worried about other fans. I'm really not worried about that. I'm worried about the tactics that Arteta employed in the beginning of the match and really just stuck with the entire match. And some of the individual performances, I don't think they were good enough. Um, Ramsdale was great. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So let's start off with, I guess we'll start off with the losers and then just try to move into a more positive thing. But I would say the first loser for me is Sambi. I think wonderful player. I wouldn't say he's a revelation, but he's been a nice surprise in terms of recruitment for Arsenal. But I think he dropped the ball today in terms of making a real play for Granit Xhaka's position in the next 2 or 3 months while he'll be out. This is a big opportunity for him, and I don't really think he did himself justice. I think he's a better player than what he showed today. He made some really bad decisions on the ball. He would win it and then pass it away. He had one opportunity to just let the build-up build just a little bit more, and he decided to shoot. And he's not a great shooter, so I don't know why he's doing that. And he just didn't look great today. And I don't think that he didn't try hard. I just think he was a little out of his depth and he didn't make a good play for that position. And I would like to see Arteta go back to Emile Smith-Rowe and Odegaard and Thomas Partey in the midfield together against Aston Villa and Crystal Palace and Leeds, because I just think that playing Sambi and Thomas together, although both technically gifted, really good players in between the lines, can beat their marker, can receive the ball off of the back line, I don't think it adds enough diversity in our midfield. And I just think we're a little bit more dynamic with the other three versus the two together. And I think Sambi just didn't really stand up on his own today. And some of it's the tactics, but some of it I just think is just bad decision-making on his part. It's not Arteta's fault that he takes a shot from outside the box. It's not Arteta's fault that he gets the ball and instead of making a better pass, he passes it into traffic for Emile Smith-Rowe. Like, those are his issues, So I understand people saying like, well, Arteta, it's a combination of the two. But I think Sambi had his first bad game for Arsenal, and that's really it sucks, but it happens, Giles says Sambi played well. I disagree. I think he had a tough game. Bakuda says we shouldn't judge Sambi on one game. He will hopefully have the opportunity to gain more experience and get better. And it's not about making a judgment. I think a judgment would be he's a bad player. That's a judgment, making a complete judgment on the future of a player or his future at Arsenal or who he is as a player based on one game. What I'm saying is that he didn't make a really good play for that position in this game. And you have to be honest with yourself. In the Premier League and for a team like Arsenal under immense pressure, I've been saying this from the season. As soon as it started, I said, we are under pressure to get into Europe. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. We're under pressure. And so you have to take the opportunities that you get. And I don't think he did that. Is that a judgment on Sambi, the player? No. Is it a judgment on his performance? Absolutely. And I think it's fair to make that judgment based on what we've seen. T. Cal says Arteta doesn't make impactful tactical adjustments ever. He doesn't seem to know how. Yeah, I think Arteta suffers from a little bit of that, like, these are the tactics that I'm going with, and changing them means an acceptance of they weren't right. And a lot of managers are like that. Pep is definitely like that. He will die on that hill and then ask questions and then change things after the game. Like, I would not be surprised if against, who do we play next? Crystal Palace? If against Crystal Palace or Leeds, we come out pressing them and we play with Odegaard, Smith-Rowe, and Thomas Partey, and we forget about this. That's just how Arteta is. And yeah, we're going to lose points because of it. I do agree with that. Let's see. Don Fry says the technical ability of Brighton players is on another level. Potter's got them humming. I disagree with this. Again, I think not pressing the opposition makes the players look better technically than they actually are. Do they play good football because Potter has them coached well? Absolutely. But the individual technical ability of those players to me are not superior to Odegaard, Thomas Partey, Sambi, Gabriel, Tierney, Emile Smith-Rowe, Bakayo. I think we are better technically and player for player than they are. And I think they're better coached. And that's really what it is. I can't say that a team is better technically than us if we didn't even lay a glove on them. It wasn't because we pressed them and they got away from us like a Man City would. It's more because we just never touched them. We actually never touched them. So I disagree with this. I don't think that their technical ability is on another level. I think their coaching was on another level. So yeah, I think the next loser that I want to talk about is Odegaard. I think he struggled massively in this game. And it's a real letdown from the captain-like performance that he put in against Spurs. And for me, you can't just be good in moments where you're meant to be up for it. You have to be up for every single game in the Premier League. And it's not so much that he just lost the ball. In games, you're going to be loose on the ball. What pissed me off was the fact that he just jumped in the air and slumped his shoulders and let his man just run off with the ball. And that was the first sign for me of Odegaard lacking the ability to take responsibility. And that is not the type of mentality that I expected him to have. There's a lot of Arsenal fans that are calling for him to be kind of like that leader. And I feel like that was a ding against him. That for me, that's a mark on his CV. And that's not to say that he won't clean it up in the future. But a captain's like performance, and we'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about winners, is Ramsdale, is Gabriel. Those two players played like captains in a difficult period when Arsenal really needed them to step up, whereas Odegaard took himself out of the game and felt sorry for himself. And so, again, this is not a judgment on a player. I'm not saying that at 22 years old he's finished. That's what a rival would say. Oh, Souls, do you want to come on? Hold on. Let me send the link really quick to Souls, just in case he wants to come on. I see him in the chat. But that's not a judgment on Odegaard, the player. It's just a criticism of how he played today. And if it continues on, yes, I think we should be more critical of him. But I don't like what I saw from him in terms of when he lost the ball, how he reacted to that. It was poor from him. 100%. What did you guys think of Odegaard's performance? I mean, I don't think there's really much to say about it other than it was bad. And that's the thing. You can be bad, but I expect you to still step up in the end of the day. And I didn't really see that from him as somebody who's a captain of Norway and as somebody that's looked at as a leader in the team. I don't expect you to just kind of give up when things are not going your way. So exactly, Bakuda. Odegaard gave Ozil vibes today. And yeah. And you guys were just, again, I just want to be really clear on the fact that it's okay to criticize and pick apart a performance and still understand that a draw is not the end of the world. But there's nothing to talk about if we just say it's a draw and it's fine. Hey, Souls, how are you? I just see
could be better, obviously, but
yeah. No, I get it. So I was just doing the losers, and I already did Odegaard and Sambi. Was there somebody else that you think stood out to you as somebody that didn't have a good game or let you down, or anybody like that? Because I could name a couple more, and I'm trying to be specific about, and also say that the tactics probably has something to do with it. Not a judgment on the player long term, but there's definitely some players that I feel like just didn't give enough. You know what I mean? They just didn't. No, what do you think?
I think if you're going with players for now, I'd say this hurts me so much to say Tomiyasu. It
Yeah.
hurts so much to say, but unfortunately, this was probably his first bad game for Arsenal, in my opinion. Cucurella absolutely cooked him. There was one point where he was on the floor. Like, that's just how much he got cooked. Look, when you've got an average age of 22 and something months, it's going to happen. It's a learning curve. I'm annoyed because I feel like Arteta went against everything we've seen for the past like 4 games kind of thing, where there was no press, there was no, and I think what scares me is this is the pattern that we've seen last season, where we had a really big win and then would go on to kind of be lackluster or not perform. I'm not even saying I want the same performance. I just want at least like 50%. Like, I just want 50% of what we've seen, or even 40% would have done. I'm not expecting North London derby performances every week. Because the thing is, if we played Europe, I could be like, okay, kind of understand, even though we'd be playing Europa League, so we're not really needing to play our first team in the group stages anyways. But I think Tomiyasu, for me, unfortunately for me, he had his first bad game for Arsenal. Well, for me, this will show us if he's any good, if he can overcome this.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, because the thing about it is like the difference between Odegaard's performance and Tomiyasu's performance is I don't think he sulked or anything. I still think he did his defensive duties, even though he got outplayed. That's very normal for a player to get beat. They're going to get beat. And I think Tomiyasu did get beat, and some of the moments of uncertainty and stuff about maybe what they were doing left him kind of like scrambled. But I never saw him not take responsibility. He still was doing what he was supposed to be doing, which is important to me. But Odegaard was not.
I just wanted to go different. Yeah, I just wanted to do a different one.
Yeah, and that's why, because like I feel like when people are like, you just lump them all together, and it's not true, because I think Tomiyasu, we play against Crystal Palace or Leeds and gets back into the groove. I think Odegaard, that was a mentality issue, what I saw today. But I do want to add somebody else in, just because people are calling me to. And the thing is, I love Thomas Partey. I do. And he's one of my favorite players ever. But we were even in our group chat, and I said his body language is off for me. I didn't like it. I didn't like what I saw. And you can't show me what you showed me against against Spurs, and then play the way that you did against Manchester United last season, and then show up against Brighton without Basuma even being there and drop a stinker. The shot that he took from outside of the box was absolutely stupid and brain dead. He should not have done that. And I expect more from him. I just do. He had some good passes in between the lines, but ultimately, when you spend 45 million on a world-class player, you expect him to be world-class sometimes, and I think some of the senior performances, which we only had 2, really, if you want to count Lacazette, you can, but the performances from Aubameyang and Partey were just not good enough. Young players will be inconsistent, will let you down, will have bad times on the ball, but what is Thomas Partey and Aubameyang thinking? Like, you can't play the way you did in the derby and then turn around and do that against Brighton, regardless of tactics, can you? I mean, I think Thomas Partey had a really bad game by his standards, but I also think, and I want to get your take on this, what happened with Aubameyang today?
On the Partey thing, I think it annoyed me. If like you guys would have heard the voice notes if you listened to them, I was absolutely fuming, because the thing is, we didn't have if we control the game, I don't really care. Have the shot if you want, because it's worth having a go. But when you're trying to control a game and then you're just willingly giving them possession by giving them a goal kick, resetting, letting them come back, it just causes so much pressure on the other end. In terms of Aubameyang, I've always said it. If he smiles, we win the game. If he doesn't smile, we ain't winning. And today, I didn't see that. I didn't see the swagger. I didn't see the aura. I don't know why, because the thing is, we can't ever use the excuse this year that they're tired, because they've got no Europa League or European football, or we didn't even have a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup game that we could use as an excuse. There is no excuse. He should have been up for it. This is the question mark that we all had. After a big game, can these players stay up for it against a Brighton or the next opposition? It just happens to be Brighton. And they weren't. And I don't know what happened to Aubameyang. I think again, it's like we can sit there and go, yeah, chances weren't created. But for me, I've said it on the terrace and I'll say it here. For me, that the tactics suited a different striker. That is my opinion. I don't think the way we played doesn't suit. Aubameyang needs it to be free-flowing, free-fluid, attacking football. Lacazette is the person. If you're not controlling the game and you need someone to hold the ball, that's what we needed today. And that's where I think Arteta got it wrong. But that's what I think went wrong.
Yeah, and I also think with Aubameyang, he doesn't have to at this point, because for me, although my expectations are about Aubameyang are a lot lower in terms of what I expect from a goal output standpoint, because I think, one, the system doesn't suit him, and two, I think it's time to move on from him. And that's not killing Aubameyang. I know people don't like to hear it, but I just think at a certain point it's time to move on from a player, and I think it's time for him. But I don't expect this from him, but he comes off sometimes like a fair weather player. Like, it has to be a good day where everybody's up for it, sun shining, good grass, and we know he can do it. And again, you can't win your headers against Sanchez and Dyer and then go up against Duncan, whoever the hell was back there, and just be just shit, So I think it's a combination of what you said. We should have had a different striker, but I also think if Aubameyang had played to the best of his ability, we wouldn't have been asking for Lacazette. So it's that combination of the two. But I almost am tired of even talking about Aubameyang, because I just know that we're looking at a new striker and we know it's time to kind of move forward from him. And it's really not like super Aubameyang's fault. It just kind of is what it is, But yeah, we went through. Those are the main ones. I think ESR and Saka, they tried, but like at the same time, this is young players doing their thing. Ultimately, Aubameyang was disappointing. Partey was disappointing. Sambi was disappointing. Tomiyasu was disappointing. Oh, we didn't talk about Tierney. What's going on there? Like, I'm a huge Tierney fan, but I'm starting to be like, do we need to open up a dialogue about Kieran Tierney? Like, what's actually going on with him? Let me try to not overreact. He was poor on the ball. Very poor on the ball. And I get the calls for Tavares, and this is why we got him, right? Like, am I a little bit too, like, you can tell me, Souls, if I'm just holding on to it too much because I love him so much, but do you think I'm holding on to it because I love him so much, or do you think it may be time to let Tavares kind of play some games? And, because my idea of that back line includes Tierney, and I think long-term it does, but he's been really bad this season, if we're honest, So do you think I'm just loving him too much? Do you think I need to let go? Because Tavares, he couldn't have been as bad as Tierney on the ball, could he have?
No, I think he would have been better. His delivery has been shocking this season. I don't know. Maybe it's always been like this. Maybe we've just because it's always gotten through. We're thinking, oh yeah, it's really good, but no one's gotten to the end of him. But he needs to. It's the same problem I had with Bellerin. You need to sometimes vary up your crosses. I feel like he's become predictable. You know what he's going to do? Get to the byline and whip him in. He's never going to float them in. He's not going to, put a nice ball in the air. Or it's always a whippage, and it's always something. And don't get me wrong, it asks questions of the defense. They can miscontrol the ball. The keeper could try and parry it out, and your striker could get onto it. I get why he does it, but for me, it's like when it becomes so predictable what you're doing, it's easy to read. It's easy for them to be like, all right, if Tierney's attacking, do this, because that's all he's going to do. And that's the thing. It's never been varied. And that's one of the things why we got excited about Chambers last season, because not only was he whipping the balls in, he was floating them in at times. And this is what we've become. We've become a very predictable team in the style that we play. We know we're going to get it over to Tierney. We know how we're going to do it. And if Tierney can just vary it up, and this is why I think when Tavares came in and on his debut, when he scored, no one expected him to do that. That's the problem. The opposite. I can't remember who he scored against, but they just didn't expect him to just keep going and just going and going. And the thing is with Tierney, he is very sort of right-footed dependent. That when he his weak foot's not bad, but it's just he doesn't use it enough. Whereas with Tavares, I feel like he's more comfortable. That brings up more angles. It brings in more sort of. He can vary his attacks a lot more. So I just think for me, it's predictability, and that's I think that's a general consensus with the team. Sometimes it becomes like
predictable.
yeah, and this is why I know this is gonna sound mad, but this is why I liked when he tweaked a few. Like I don't want him to do what he did last season, where he tweaked the whole lineups and stuff, and there was like no consistency in the back line and in the midfield. But with the attack, you do have to. I've always said it. There's games you play Lacazette, and there's games you play Aubameyang. Against Brighton, for me, maybe in hindsight, it's the wrong thing to do. You can't really change a winning side, I guess. But as soon as Arteta saw, okay, we're not controlling this game, halftime, Lacazette, you're coming on, not 60, 70 minutes into it because as soon as like Pepe and Lacazette came on, that game changed like completely. I felt we did. I'm not saying we controlled it, but we looked better. ESR got that opportunity where he could have squared it. There was an opportunity where like even Aubameyang got in behind at a point in the second half. The thing for me is just you can't become predictable. And I feel like that's why Pep does it. He makes 1 or 2 changes just to keep it fresh. And for me, if Arteta can do that and he just needs to stick to his morals, like his non-negotiables need to be there every single game, not now we'll sit back because I don't want to attack this team. Now we'll do this because I don't feel confident. No, just I want him to be the arrogance he shows. I want him to show it on the pitch. I want him to show that I don't care. You're Graham Potter. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna go for this game. You don't scare me. That's what I want him to do. Even against Klopp, on the pitch, don't show respect. In your press conferences, do what you want to do. Show them respect. Be nice. Yeah, that's fine. But on the pitch, you've got to be a nasty B word. You've just got to be. Just go for the games. And for me, that's all it is.
Yeah, Lord Gunnar put up a comment, and I've lost it now, but basically to the effect of when all of our players are underperforming, why don't we just blame the manager essentially? And for me, I still think you're a professional. So your technical ability on the ball and bad decision making is on you, so you have to still look at individual performances. But what I will say is that as a player, and this is from personal experience, I feel if you go into one game and the consensus is we're better than this team, we're going to kick them off the park, run them off the park, and we're going to win this game. And then the very next game you turn around and you employ risk-adverse, almost scared tactics against Brighton, a team that I think most people would say, maybe this will change after this season, but Spurs is a top 6 team. They're not, but top 6, and Brighton is not, that you would expect the team would probably expect to play kind of similarly against Brighton. I think you mess with the mentality of the team if you don't keep that same energy. And that's not to say that you can't tweak your tactics to make sure that you're still sound. But I don't think Sambi needed to basically be left back and Thomas Partey needed to basically be a center back. And we couldn't possibly press Dunk and Burn and Veltman and all of these players. I don't think that that's the right message that you're sending. So the thing is I do think Arteta made a mistake by geeking the players up to the point and basically saying you could beat anybody and you're this and you're that and we're going to kick these guys off the park, and then say don't touch these guys, they're so technically gifted that they'll just burn you. Like this is not Man City, it's Brighton. And I get good team, coached well, but every time that Saka and ESR tried to go up for a 50-50 and actually got stuck in, they came out with the ball. So what does that tell you? That if we had just went, and I know some people probably will push back on this, but I do think if we had actually went for it, we would have been better off. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think Brighton is that good, but
I think that's what surprised me, because that lineup looked like you're going for it, but then we didn't go for it. I was like, all right, if you played El Neni, I would have been like, okay, you're trying to control this game and then maybe go for it. But I was confused watching that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, let's talk about the winners. There was very few of them, but I think there's 2 clear winners here. Two.
I only think of one.
Gabriel was amazing today.
All right, he lost a tooth. I'll give it him.
Yeah, I mean, besides that, I mean, he was the only. I mean, and let me just say this: I think Ben White was quietly fine, but Gabriel, I think when originally when Ben White comes in, everybody's talking about he's going to be the leader of that back line. Absolute bullshit. It's Gabriel by far.
I told you.
Yeah, and you were right. Gabriel was, to me, flawless today and was one of the biggest reasons why we weren't in the mud. For reals. Like, he really, really was. Like, his passing in between the lines, he fizzed a pass into Odegaard and he took a shitty touch, but that ball has you in on goal. That guy has improved so much. And he deserves credit today, because I think if it's not for him and the only other winner here, we lose. Like, there's no way that we don't. But Gabriel, since coming in, has been virtually flawless. He has been. And he deserves a lot of respect. And I think maybe a year with David Luiz has helped him. I know people don't like David Luiz, but I think that helped him out a lot, getting some time off, being able to, I mean, because he was injured, coming back from the injury. I think he was really, really good today. And I know you'll probably say the other person, but for me, Gabriel was flawless. I mean, his smile won't be flawless because he definitely lost a tooth today. I don't know why he keeps losing that same tooth, but the guy really stepped up, and I'm loving these performances from him. And it's another indication that you can have a couple of players like Tommy and Tierney that don't have good performances, but if you have 2 or 3 other players that could step up, you can carry them. You can. You know, you really can. Tommy carried Ben White against Burnley, and it was pretty much the other way around today. So I still think the back line was pretty good, you know. So but hats off to Gabriel there.
My winner is Aaron Rambo Ramsdale. This guy has come in and just changed the narrative on himself. You know, just like Matt Hughes saying as well, like 1 goal conceded in 450 minutes of football, looked solid. Do you know when your defenders are not only praising your goalkeeping ability, but then also praise your distribution? That just knows what level you're at. And the fact that he can communicate, etc. You know, obviously Arteta came out in his press conference today to say there is still a bit of Gabriel still a bit behind in terms of his understanding in terms of English, like as the language. But obviously he is getting better. He is communicating a bit more. Like I've always said, I think once he knows English properly, or like to a decent standard, he will become the captain of this team or one of the leaders in that team. But for me, like what Ramsdale did just saved the point for us. Like that was a tap in for Morpay to go in. And then there were so many other opportunities as well where he was just commanding. You know, he was solid today. Like I can't fault him. Again, you know, Gabriel, I can't fault him either. He was solid. I think Ben White had another good game. I think against Spurs and against he was another player that kind of changed that narrative. I think he did once people watch it back and look at it. But there's not a lot of winners for me today because I just feel like there was just the defense tried to do everything they could, considering how much pressure they were under. I think it was like something like 21 or 22 shots Brighton had, obviously 2 on target, but the fact they were opening us up that many times to get these shots is what concerns me. It's like what I've been saying about Partey and Lokonga is I don't think any one of them offers the protection in the back line. And that obviously threw the team off as well, because what normally happens is Tierney's a bit more advanced and then Xhaka would drop into that sort of left back role kind of thing. Then it allows Partey to just go do his thing. I felt like Partey had to come a lot deeper because Lokonga can't do that job. And that meant Partey wasn't playing good. And then every time we gave the ball to Partey, he's receiving it too deep. Where I'm not saying he's not comfortable, but he wants it a bit more forward so that he can then whip a ball in. And that it does throw the dynamic off. I know it's excuses, but at the end of the day, he secured us the draw. He secured us at least a point, and we could have gone to win it. But they're the two. I think they're the only 2 I can give credit to. And Ben White is like a half a winner.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Ben White is that, like, if he's not dribbling out of the back and scoring a goal, people are like, he's not playing good. But I watched him today. He was fine. Like, he was good. Like, you know,
he covered Tomiyasu's like
flaws. Yeah, for sure. And it was, and I made this point on the terrace, and I think when I made it, I was like, oh, Jess, you sound kind of smart for once, you know, but I believed it when I said it. I did. But the back line has had the most surgery since Arteta has been here. It's been the back line. We have a new right back, 2 new center backs, a new goalkeeper, and Tierney, who's not new, but, you know, newish, not super new, but you know what I mean. And that's so far so good for me. Tomiyasu was bad today in terms of the standards that he showed in the first 3 games, but he gets an adaptation period just like everybody else. And just like Sancho should get one, Tomiyasu should get one too, so I think he's fine because he showed us that he can play. And Yo-Yo is right. He did get, oh no, it wasn't, no, it was Lord Gunnar. He did get double team.
Yeah,
he had a hard time. And what they will try to do is the side that Bukayo Saka is on, they're always going to double team it now because they know Saka is not really going to come back. And so because Saka was on the right, they put Kukurea on that side and let him just kind of run. And it kind of just, I think it ran him ragged. But at the same time, we still need major surgery on midfield. I don't think any of us are under any illusion whatsoever that even if Granit Xhaka was there, we may have played a little bit better, but we're still not good enough in midfield. Lukonga's not ready, and we still need major surgery up top. I still think we're 2 players short up top, and Arteta is yet to buy somebody for the front line. Odegaard is behind the 3 or behind the striker, but we still haven't really bought any attacking players. And I think
can I say on that?
Yeah,
I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think with Arteta, he doesn't want to do too much too early. But what I mean by that, I know it sounds a bit stupid to say, but what I mean is he's done a lot already, like in terms of bought in 5 signings, I think, or 6 signings, whatever it was. But what he wants to do, because we know that midfield and that striker or whatever else we need, like, but there's like 2 to 3 signings. We know they're gonna have to be big name signings. Like, say for example, in that midfield, we go for a Basuma. We've now kind of, I'm not going to say we backed ourselves into a corner to play a certain style of football. What would you have? Because if you bring Basuma in, or you bring a Locatelli or a Ruben Neves in, it's different. The styles are different. The midfields are different. For example, if we go get like a Tammy Abraham, or we get a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or we get Alexander Isak, that's a different style of football you're now going to play. And I feel like what Arteta's trying to do is understand his team. Like, okay, I made these improvements. Now let me see what these improvements have done and what is it that I need in that midfield. Now we know Basuma, for me, is now taking the lead in terms of what style of midfielder I want in there. And for me, like an Isak or a Dominic Calvert-Lewin seems to be the logical choice, because not only does Calvert-Lewin and Isak both have the pace to go in behind, but they also have the hold-up ability when we need it. Like, for example, today, if we had like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'd be like, both things are covered. If they play a high line, he's got the pace to go in behind. But if we're losing control, they've got the ability to hold up and be physical with those defenders. So that's why I think I think with Arteta, he knows these are going to be 50 odd million pound signings for each of them. I know Basuma could cost like 25 to 30 due to his contract, basically coming into the last year of his contract. So he could come at a bargain, but we know these 2 positions are the ones we want to blow the money out on, because what Edu said as well, this like coming windows, whether it's in January or whether it's in the summer, we're bringing in his words, world beaters, world-class players to come in. So that's going to cost money, like 50 million. If we get it wrong, then we're screwed, because then we're like, oh shit, because then you have to try and sell them and bring someone in, and it's just a repeat. So I do like it that they're taking their time and they're trying to think about it, but it just needs to happen, because I'm scared when we're at this. Because if we don't get top 6, this whole plan just goes to shiz.
It does, and that's why when people like one of my biggest gripes over the summer was people not talking about the pressure that we're under to make Europe. I know that they haven't set a benchmark, and Edu didn't say it out loud, but we have to get in Europe. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to recruit the type of players necessary to get us to that next level. With teams like Brighton, Aston Villa, West Ham, Everton being able to pick off points from the top teams, everything is evening out now. And taking points off of Brighton would have got us just more points. Winning the game would have taken us a little bit closer to where we want to be. But to play Aston Villa, they're above us as well. If he's not able to take points off of these teams, we will finish mid-table. So again, he's still a part of this project, and that's why it's very risky to have a young project full of super young players that are talented but still not where they want to be, senior players that can't be relied upon. I think Aubameyang showed once again why he can't be relied upon. Lacazette can't be relied upon now. Maybe even Thomas Partey can't be relied upon. we'll see how but he was poor today. You don't have a manager that you can rely upon either because he's still learning his trade, and he got outclassed by Graham Potter. And there's a lot of pushback on, I think it was George on the same channel was like, I struggle to see why anybody would want Graham Potter over Arteta because they play similar football. It's because he's more experienced. He can get his
No,
football across.
he backs. The thing is, if Arteta backs himself, then I don't really have an issue with him. But the fact is, Graham Potter will not change his football because he's playing Man City. He will not change his football because he's playing Liverpool. He will not change his mentality or structure because he's playing a certain team. He's like, this is the way we play. This is the way we're gonna play. If we get battered, we get battered. If we win, we win. And I think that's what I want. Because he's doing that with Brighton, not with Arsenal, not with United, not with Liverpool or Man City. He's doing it with Brighton. Yes, maybe because he's got no pressure. Maybe getting a hammering from Man City may not seem as bad for him. Whereas we're getting a hammering for Arsenal in the same manner would be, But I just think, for me, I just want Arteta to just grow a pair of balls and just stick to his system because it's clearly worked. But it's funny because, for me, it's like, why aren't you seeing this? Because you beat Spurs, you beat Burnley, you beat Norwich, and the one time you changed the mentality, you struggled. So why not try just sticking to your mentalities? Go for the games. And that's all it is for me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. It's not just about Arteta and the way that he wants to play. I'm sure he has good ideas, but it's still the same thing where experience is also really important. Experience shows you when you should make changes and when you should stick with what you were doing. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to play exactly the way we played against Spurs and just continue to play that way until we get to Liverpool or Man City. But he already changed in one game, so it's rough. And I do think that he is quite risk adverse, and we've always kind of known this about him. But even with better players, he's the same way. So it's important to recognize patterns. Is it that he's risk adverse because he didn't have the players and he wasn't sure about them, or is he just naturally that way? And for Arsenal Football Club, we should go into most games wanting to be the aggressor, and we're being risk adverse against Brighton. And I know it's Brighton and they've in good form, but player for player, we're better than them. And if we had played the way that we played against Spurs against Brighton, I would have fancied us against them. But it is what it is. But I do want to end the segment just on what was learned or what was confirmed today. I think it's a difficult one because it's just it feels like a loss, doesn't it? Didn't it feel like we lost? It feels like we lost, but still, I think we can all say that we kind of deserve to lose. I mean, if our next game had been a draw against Chelsea or a draw against City or a draw against Liverpool, then you're like, oh, we're on the track. No, it's Brighton. So I would say something that was confirmed to me today is that 100% Arteta is a part of this project and he needs to get better. I think he's nowhere near where he needs to be. And that doesn't mean that he can't be a great manager. I stand by what I said on the terrace, where people are like, how dare you say that Arteta could be a great manager? Well, I wouldn't count people out on their first 2 years of a job that they've never done before. That's no indication of whether or not you could be a great manager. Will he be that at Arsenal? I don't know, but I do think that he needs to improve in order for the project to move forward. Because as Souls has already said, this project will derail if we don't get into Europe. We need those 2 or 3 players to take us to that next level. So he can't drop points at the expense of the project. He literally can't, but that's kind of what you're putting yourself into when you have Arteta as the manager. So it's just, he has to get better. That's what's confirmed to me. He can't just keep switching the way that we play. And I would love to ask the players, and I know I'll never get an opportunity to, but how do you feel going up against Spurs and being told to go at a team, and then going up against Brighton and being told the exact opposite? What's that?
It's just food's come. So it's just.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, what have you learned anything new today, or anything been confirmed to you?
What have I learned? Oh, I think one thing I've learned is Arteta's not going to stick to his style, should I say? And one jokey thing, Partey still can't shoot. He's not improved at all. I don't know how many plays he's taking out. But do you know what it is? Like for me, it's just I wanted Arteta to change his mentality and the mentality of the club, but it seems like the same patterns are being repeated in terms of we had a big win, and I am going to say it is a big win against Spurs, but then you came to Brighton with a different mentality. And I've always said it. I think the culture and the mentality of this team has changed, but obviously maybe that was a little bit early to say, and it's probably still early to say. And it's still early to flip flop on that opinion, because I do think the players till the end did fight, which we don't normally see. They still try to get a win out of the game, regardless of being on the back foot the entire time. And one thing I do want to also say is these performances do come to everyone. Liverpool had it, City had it against Southampton, where they didn't even have a shot on target. So it's nothing to be sort of, I say, embarrassed by or to overreact about. But for me, it's just, I just want him to stick to it. Just stick to the style. Stop changing it so much. Because the problem what he has is he goes from one extreme to the other. It's not, okay, let's play a more controlling football. No, it's let's play attacking against Spurs and then go way defensive against a Brighton. And it's just, that's what's been confirmed for me, is that, okay, we're not, the mentality that I thought we had is not quite there in terms of what I'm trying to say is so last year against Spurs, we'll play that way and then we'll do this against Brighton, and he's done it again. This is the pattern that we've been seeing: a big win and then a weird, shaky performance against the next opposition. Obviously, in this case, being Brighton. What I want him to do: go over the international break, really pump this team up, and go for Villa and go for Palace and then Villa. I just want him to go for them. And then against Liverpool, I just want to compete in every game. I didn't feel like we competed, and that's a confirmation for me. We're just not there quite yet.
Basically, I just want to end on this just one more time, because maybe people came in at the time where we were talking about the players and all of this, but this could still be I'm not overreacting, because for me, I'm going to be critical. Anytime we play a game, I'm going to analyze it. What's the point of even doing a show if you're not going to analyze it because it was a draw? And it's fine. So we're still going to talk about the players and nitpick and kind of talk about it overall. But nobody said that this was the end of the world. It's 3 games where we won and then we drew a game. This could easily be a blip on the scene of a good run. It really, really could be. We could go against Aston Villa and Leeds and Crystal Palace and get points and be perfectly fine. But again, you can't look at this and say that we can't analyze the performance of the manager and the players because it's a draw and other teams have went there and lost and all of that. There's no point in doing a show if you can't talk about the game and you're just supposed to say it's a draw, so it's fine. So nobody's saying that it's the end of the world, but we're going to analyze it regardless. And there were some poor individual performances. You can't get away with that. Some people are asking, do I think that Arteta set up wrong? I think he did go more risk adverse than he did against Spurs. And we did not press. Fundamentally, we did not press. And that was a big part of what we did against Spurs. And so that is manager instruction. Them 11 players did not just say all together, you know what, you guys, we're not going to press. They were told not to press because he respected Brighton and Graham Potter and what they were going to do. So that is just final to me.
You know what it is? It's right tactics, wrong lineup. That's what I'm going to... Because for me, them tactics work if you've got Pepe and Lacazette on the pitch, in terms of you've got a solid hold-up player, so you can just boot the ball up the pitch or play those sort of 60 up, and Lacazette's going to hold it up for a Pepe or a Saka to run in behind. I just felt like we played the wrong lineup for the tactics, if that makes sense. I think the tactics could have worked with Lacazette, but if you're going to play Aubameyang, you've got to play how you played against Spurs.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm happy with the draw. We didn't deserve it. but we got it anyway due to some really, really good performances from Ramsdale, Gabriel, the back line, and some really bad misses from Brighton. That is just what it is, you guys. It's really, there's no way to dress it up, and maybe with other players we do lose that game, but I expected us to maybe win it. But let's go ahead and end it there. There's about 127 of you guys watching the show. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with a friend. We'll be back on Monday with a post-match and Tactical Tuesday on Tuesday for members. So yeah, we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.